afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having us here at Red Cloud. Excited to present the Mawson story. It's not something that I do that often. Michael Hudson, the CEO, is actually on his way from Melbourne to Finland right now, so I'll be stepping into his shoes. I'm a director of the company. I have been for 2 years, but I'm also a shareholder. I've actually invested in the company almost 10 years ago when they first got the project that I'm going to take you through today. So let's go ahead. So I have made some notes since I don't do this, so I'll be referring here. So today I'm going to take you through the Rampis-Rajapalot project in Finland with the focus on the results that we've just been reporting from our 2019 winter program. We put these highlights here, which I'd like you to sort of keep in mind as I go through the next few slides. We think the discovery is the most developed gold-cobalt resource discovery in Finland at the moment. We did put out an initial resource December of last year. It's not in the presentation, so I would note it was a preliminary first resource of about 440 ounces at 3.1 grams per ton. It's on 2 zones, which we'll talk about, but we've already exceeded that in our view by the results that I'm going to show you today. Our goal, we think there's resource expansion, runway towards defining a resource of about 2.5 to 3 million ounces at 4 to 6 grams per ton. Again, I'll show you how we think we're going to get there. We're fully permitted for 3 years to drill this property, and that's an important highlight for people that have known the story in the past. We have had drilling permit issues. Those are behind us. We've actually, the campaign that I'm going to take you through, 15,000 meters this winter was our 3rd winter in a row doing about that level of work. So the permanent issues are behind us in that sense, and we've got 3 years runway to keep drilling. So the next slide, sort of want to locate you as to where we are and why we're here. So we're in the Nordics, in the center of the map there of the world, at the top in the black box. It's a prolific metal area, obviously. There's some very large Tier 1 assets there, and many mining companies that you know are there. What's important is the leadership team, which I'll tell you about at the end. They've spent decades working in this region, so they're very familiar with it. Then we zoom into Finland, where some of you may be familiar or less familiar, but it always ranks very highly as a mining jurisdiction in the Fraser Institute surveys. It is a safe jurisdiction. There's a lot of different companies and projects in country, and we think it's a very good place to be, both from a prospectivity but also the ability to develop mines. And our project is right at the Arctic Circle there in the middle, Rampis-Rajapalot. So we go to the next slide, and this, there's a lot going on here in terms of the different claims that we have. I think what we're really trying to illustrate on this slide is that we have a very large area, and so the work that I'm going to tell you about that we've completed this past winter really is just a very small, touching a small amount of what we have. So there's big potential here longer term. Where we're going to focus the presentation on is in the Rajapalot area on the right-hand side of the map there. So this is kind of the most important slide of the presentation. It really talks about what we did and what we achieved in the 2019 drill program. I am not a geologist, so I might, Derek, you might have to step in if I get anything wrong, but what I would like to do is go through each one of these points specifically and sort of detail what we've done. And just for reference, there's a lot of names and a lot of detail on the left-hand side of the map, but the resources that I was talking about at the beginning are in Palokis, South Palokis, and Rhea. Those are the purple areas. That's where we spent most of our drilling this year, but we drilled 5 different areas, so those 3 plus 2 others where we've made new discoveries. At those resource areas, we have tripled the down plunge extent of the gold. So that 440,000 ounces that we're talking about, we see a lot of room for increase on that basis. What is important and exciting for us, and I'll show you on the next slide, the results, the tenor of the results that we came up with. We've actually drilled in this program 6 of our best 7 holes, and they were drilled, importantly, towards the end of the program. So our knowledge of how to target higher grade, stronger mineralization has improved through the campaign. And as I mentioned, we did test and make 2 new discoveries, the Hut and Rumajärvi, I think is how you pronounce it. And those are close proximity to the resource areas. So we think that going forward, both of those areas have good prospectivity for generating resources. We also completed geophysics, and it's not covered in this presentation, but it shows these deposits show up very well in the geophysics that we've done, and we have shown that the mineralization or the conductive units continue down plunge from what we've tested and even what we see in our models. So we think there's a lot more extent down plunge. And when we talk about drilling, the permanent drilling, all the drilling that we do is winter drilling because of access into this area, but Pelocus and where we show in the geophysics the possible extensions, we can now drill in the summer. So we'll have news flow all year round from drilling now. If we go on to the next slide, this is where we show more details of the results, and I think it's kind of important to look at them. You know, of course, we rank them the best on the top, and by best I just mean the highest gram meter calculations. And I haven't talked about it yet, but I'll maybe stop and talk about it here. But there's also a Cobalt credit to our results, and you can see it in the table here. Typically, it would add about a gram, but there are some areas of significantly higher cobalt. We're not targeting the cobalt specifically. Where it comes with the gold, we obviously report it. There is one hole that was drilled at the Rhea prospect. It was actually outside of the gold zone, and it's about the 10th one down where there's no gold intercept, but there's 0.6% cobalt. So we can get some very high cobalt grades outside of the resource and within the resource. Again, it's not really a focus of ours, but for strategic reasons I'll talk about in a second, the cobalt could be quite important. And I think the results do speak for themselves. They're wide and continuous and very good grade. So we talk about the 3-year permit. What are we going to do? We're going to drill 60 kilometers in this area, and again, the target is to outline 2.5 to 3 million ounces between 4 and 6 grams. And how can that be achieved? As we talked about, we showed you the Pelocus, South Pelocus, and Rhea. Those are going to be the focus. Obviously, those are the existing resources, and then the new areas. And then we'll also look further afield, as I said, and we showed you at the beginning, we have a very large land package, and there's significant prospectivity. And now, with all the information that we've learned of targeting through the geophysics, we think that we can find blind mineralization through running bigger programs. We do have some technical slides. Again, it's not really my focus, so I won't dwell on it, other than when I look at these, what do I see? I see continuity across down plunge, and at the bottom left there, you can see the extension of the geophysics, which we obviously think looks very prospective given how well it tracks in the holes above. And I think the other thing to highlight is, especially this season, we've been hitting more high grade within the core, and I think that bodes well for the future. We've got a section on Pelocus and South Pelocus. Again, I'm not going to really give you much more detail than what you can see there, other than it says the same thing to me. There's expansion potential at depth in both of those zones. Touch on the cobalt, and this is where we talk about it in a bit more detail. And of course, the cobalt is nice to have from an economic benefit. As I said, it adds on average about a gram to each interval. But more importantly, cobalt is become very much a focus for Finland and Sweden. And in fact, in Finland, one of the largest cobalt refiners in the world is there. And there's a big push to find ethically sourced cobalt. Having cobalt with our project in country, I think we're about 200 kilometers away from the refinery. I think there's big strategic benefit to that. And where, again, going back into the history of the company, there are a lot of people who have doubted the ability of the project, one, to get drilled. Well, we've solved that problem and we're drilling. But now the next step would obviously be to develop a mine, and where we can deliver ethically sourced cobalt, we think that will definitely put us in good stead with the politicians in country who are pushing this agenda. We have done some metallurgical work, and the initial numbers are very good. Of course, we have to do more work, also as it relates to the cobalt, and those programs will be ongoing. So the next sort of 12 months, how does it look? it's the same drilling, well, except now we'll be drilling in the summer, and that should start shortly. And those are those targets I mentioned, the extensions at Pelocus, and then back to winter drilling in January, subject to funding. And sorry, the resource upgrade, so we're not going to update the resource from this winter's program. That resource will be upgraded after the end of the next winter's program. And so we talk about the ownership. This is a bit of a double-edged sword for us in terms of our shareholders summary. So we have, between our main investors and insiders, about almost 70% of the stock is held in very tight hands. Sentient Equity Partners came in back in 2011 and had funded the company through very tough times in that sort of permitting quagmire that we were in. And so they continue to hold a big position. Newmont, well, Goldcorp came in last year prior to the Newmont acquisition, and they own 12.7%. These other institutions that represent 24.4%, those are LPs of Sentient, so they're very much tied to the Sentient position. They're endowment funds out of the US, very large university endowment funds. And then management insiders own still a very good amount. We're obviously disappointed with where the share price is relative to the results that we've been putting out. I think that what I'm telling you today is not really well understood by the market in terms of our ability to take that 400,000 odd ounce resource and expand it to 2.5 to 3 over the next couple of years. So I think that's where the disconnect comes, and it's just our job to get out there and tell the story and show people these results. In terms of the team, as I mentioned, they've all worked in the Nordics for a very long time, and we've been very lucky in keeping the main people together over quite a long time. In fact, I would say most of the directors are founding directors, and most of the technical team have been there for at least 5 to 10 years. And it's very geologically heavy in terms of the directors and management, which is a good thing, but I came in to add more on the finance side, my background being investment banking and fund management. So that's kind of the story, the summary. These are the same points that I made at the beginning. We think we've made a very exciting discovery. There's big upside potential. We're going to continue to drill it aggressively, and the work that we've done and the results that I showed you, I think, well, they definitely give us confidence that we know how to target high-grade mineralization in this system, and we'll continue to do that for the 3 years that the permit is active, and obviously we would renew it after that. That is the story.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill. We have time for one or two questions or so.
One question about Finland. Do they have a heritage type fund where they invest in their own resource?
So they do, and we've had a lot of conversations with them. There have been some changes just recently, and part of what Mike's going to Finland right now to do is to talk to some of those funds. There's a mine, the Talavera Mine, which is down here, is a very large bioheap leach operation, and it was recently, maybe 2 years ago now, taken over by the government. And so there is a pool of funds that the government has dedicated to mining, and it's actually been a success story for them. Talavera is now called Sakamo, and they took it over out of bankruptcy, and they turned it into a thriving nickel zinc mine. So there are funds, and it's a very good. It's very much top of our mind getting some Finnish investors into the story, because we think that will validate our ability to move the project ahead.